Waste not, want not is the theme of Food and Wine this week. Leslie Sbrocco and her guests look at some of the urban gardens emerging throughout San Francisco and ride along with food runners as they distribute leftover food to those in need.
Thanks, Belva. 23 years ago, one of our guests hated throwing away good food from her cooking school. She still does. Mary Risley knew that people were hungry, so she created food runners to transport leftover food from those who had too much and gave it to those who needed it most. And Bay Area Bites blogger Stephanie Rosenbaum gets her hands dirty, discovering how to convert derelict space into fertile gardens. First, we visit a transformed urban wasteland and garden in San Francisco. New life has come to this vacant lot. Once a church, it's been transformed by volunteers into free farm. Vegetables and fruit spring from the earth, including early strawberries ripe for picking. The rows of vegetables stand in contrast to the surrounding concrete. And at the Garden for the Environment, flowers are interspersed with fruit trees and vegetables. It's a place of learning as well as beauty, smack in the middle of the city. Now, Stephanie, tell us about this growing trend of urban gardens, because we can't even keep track, really, of how many are out there right now.
There are really so many that seem to be coming up every month, it seems. I know Free Farm just started in January, and you'd never know from looking at that beautiful space that it all volunteer labor, and people were just so excited to take what they had been walking by, a weedy lot for really years, I think. And now all of a sudden it's become a beautiful transformed place. And I know there's a lot of other places as well. And it's a way, I think, to get involved where you meet your neighbors.
It's very community oriented.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And you take something that's maybe, a sort of an eyesore in your neighborhood that just attracts trash and, plastic bags, and all of a sudden you can turn it into something that benefits the whole community.
And there are a number of these, I think, that people can look at and visit, like Hayes.
Like there's that new, there's the Hayes Farm, and then there's a wonderful one called the Alamany Farm that's down the southeastern part of the city. There's also the Garden for the Environment, which is a lovely little garden over in the Sunset that teaches a lot of classes. You can learn about composting. You can learn about keeping chickens in your backyard. You can learn about dry landscape gardening, all kinds of things.
Right. And what do people do when they have these urban gardens, and let's say they have too much fruit? They've planted fruit trees, for example, and what do they do with it?
Absolutely. Well, there's a wonderful thing called the Free Farm Stand that actually happens in at 23rd and Treat at a park there on Sundays from 1 to 3, and it's a wonderful giveaway of food from the farmers market, as well as a lot of food from people's gardens. And if you have too many lemons, you have too much kale, you have too much lettuce, you can just put it in a bag and bring it down there, and it will be used by the community.
What are the resources for people, let's say, who want to transform their own backyard or front yard, take out the lawn and make it a place of...
Please get rid of your lawn and grow food. You can grow an amazing amount in a really small space. There's a lot of resources out there. There's a wonderful garden. There's a wonderful organization called Planting Justice that I just started working with, and they transformed my friend's little tiny Oakland bungalow into what we're calling the food forest. They're permaculturalists, and they do wonderful work, and they also work and do a lot of work with low-income communities as well. So making this something that's available to everyone, no matter what your income level.
Right. And I think, again, we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg here, aren't we?
Oh, absolutely. I think this is going to become more and more popular. I know when they had the Victory Garden in front of City Hall, that really, I think, opened a lot of people's eyes. That you don't have to have a huge suburban backyard to be able to grow all kinds of things.
That's right. And we'll get into talking about food runners with that, because next we joined food runners on their trek around the city, saving good food before it hits the garbage can. Their truck and dedicated community of volunteers, like Tom, pull up to businesses all over the city to collect leftover containers of food. It's then dropped off to organizations for the hungry in their mission to eliminate waste and alleviate hunger. Now, Mary, you started Food Runners in 1987. So what was your goal? How did you come up with this idea?
So at Tante Marie's Cooking School, we often have a lot of leftover food. Yesterday we had a whole bunch of scones and breads, and I have to decide whether to throw it away, give it to the help, or drive it to a shelter. And I thought there must be other people in food businesses in San Francisco with that same problem.
Right.
So I found a woman in Berkeley called Carolyn North who taught me how to do this kind of a program.
Right.
And we started off with one volunteer.
And now you have 200 volunteers, right?
And how it works is that anybody with food in San Francisco can call us, and we will send a volunteer to pick up just put it in a plastic bag, and we'll pick it up and take it to the appropriate neighborhood feeding program.
Now, is that true of just businesses? Because I know you have over 400 sort of donors, or can people do that from their homes? How does that work?
So it's best if you have food in your home. Let's say you know something happened and you didn't have the dinner party. What you can do is you can call us and we will tell you the best place to take it in your neighborhood.
Right.
Yeah.
And then if you're a business, you would come to my business, say, and
we come
you'd
to
pick up.
It's hard to send volunteers to a home.
Right, yeah.
Right. And I have a question about liability because, you know, sometimes you would hear people concerned, well, I'm not going to give my food to them because I'm afraid, what if somebody gets sick and then I'll be responsible for that? Is that true?
No, there's no reason to be concerned about liability.
Right.
That you have a good kitchen, you're clean.
Yeah, because everything's coming from commercial kitchens.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Right.
But there was a law passed in 1989 to protect the donor across the country, and there's a California state law protecting the donor. So there's no reason to be concerned about liability. The people are using it as an excuse.
And we have over 6 million tons of food in California that goes wasted and unused when it could be recycled and redirected.
So no matter how big
from the cleaning point of view or from the prepared food point of view, it should not be thrown. You can't recover food that's already been served to somebody on a plate.
Right.
That has to go into compost.
Of course.
But everything else should be given to people that
And it's
can use
actually
it.
quite cost effective, isn't it? It's much cheaper to redirect the food and give it to somebody like Food Runners, and there are other organizations certainly that do this, than it is to throw away or compost.
One of our best donors is the Marriott on 4th Street. We send a truck there because it is a big donation, and they have found that they save $7,000 a year by giving it to packaging it and giving it to food runners rather than putting it in compost.
Isn't that amazing? And how do you operate your organization? Because I think it's remarkable. You have obviously 200 volunteers, but who are your staff and how are you funded?
Well, we get some of our funding from foundations and some of it from our annual appeal. But the big one is we have a part-time dispatcher who gets people to go pick up. An example of picking up food is today at 3:30, there's a volunteer going to Live Oak School down the street and picking up 4 trays of pasta.
Right.
And it's going to be taken to a detox center on Howard. But
so everyone, really, what you're saying is everybody can help.
Yes.
And people can just jump in, and whether it's giving away your fruit tree.
Giving away lemons off your tree. Right.
Or calling you up, everybody can help. Well, I have to say thank you to both Mary Risley and Stephanie Rosenbaum. You'll find more information on urban farms at kqed.org/thisweek and links to Food Runners where you can sign up to volunteer. Until next time, cheers.
Thank you.